Former ABC journalist Terry Moran is speaking out after his ouster.
ABC fired Moran after he tweeted that White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller was a, quote, world-class hater and that his, quote, hatreds were spiritual nourishment. He also said President Trump was a world-class hater, but that his own glorification was his spiritual nourishment.
Here he is discussing the tweet on the Bulwark podcast with Tim Miller.
That's hot. That's hot material.
It's way hot. And I wish I had a better story, Tim. It was something that was in my heart and mind. And I would say I used very strong language deliberately because I felt, and it wasn't any, you see him all the time doing the same, spitting venom and lies into our debate, degrading our public discourse, debasing it.
Miller asked Moran about criticism from the right who say Moran was a Democrat this whole time and that it was just a moment where his mask was off. Here's Moran's response. Take a look.
Have at it, but my own feeling is you don't sacrifice your citizenship as journalism, and your job is not to be objective. There is no Mount Olympus of objectivity where a Mandarin class of wise people have no feelings about what their society. We're all in this together. What you have to be is fair and accurate.
Yeah, I more or less agree with what he says there. I have long criticized the same abstract idea he is referencing there, that journalists are objective or have no views of their own. That has never been the case. Journalists, like other American people, have their own political ideas and ideologies. The illusion was pretending that they didn't, and thus their views or their reporting was coming from some apolitical place and was just the facts. Right, we want fairness, not objectivity is impossible. No one is fully objective. I have my own views, and I express them. Obviously, that's the point of our show. And if this was more of a news program rather than an opinion program, I would not suddenly stop having views, and I would find ways to interject them in what we were doing. So the important thing is being honest and disclosing those views so that people can judge for themselves, providing other views as well so people can get alternate perspectives. That is the way I think journalism should be done, particularly television journalism, in the modern context. So I more or less agree with him. I also think that I've criticized Stephen Miller a lot. I think he does frequently suggest that he has a kind of really special animus for immigrants in general. He ordered ICE to deport more non-violent illegal immigrants as well, which I think was a policy mistake. So I'm not really, to use your phrase, from really clutching my pearls over this comment. Also, I was seeing my friend Matt Taibbi wrote a great piece about this, saying that, for years, mainstream media corporations, television corporations, have encouraged their journalists to be more perspective-based on social media, to create personal brands around them with their followers on social media. And then they get mad when they actually tweet something that has some substance to it. So it's kind of hypocritical in that direction.
I think there's so much here because I started out as a traditional local news reporter and went to many different outlets and provided analysis now, particularly political perspective, where you're giving opinion and commentary, always based on facts, because that's how I learned how to do it in college and came out. But I think when you work I think cable news has changed the way that news, because all people don't decipher and get into the weeds about what news is actually more opinion-based and what's fact-based news. But when you have ABC or an outlet that's, providing or supposed to be providing journalism, even though there's been criticisms naturally on all sides. Objective is just that there are tiers and layers that help people get to the root and the fact of the story. So if Terry Moran is there as a news correspondent, he's not there as, an opinion columnist or somebody providing perspective. And so he has to just be careful when his public stances are veering from what the facts are that he says on television. And particularly as somebody who's a news journalist that covers politics, you can't then tweet something that is totally just so opinion-based. Now, one thing if you share your personality, because news organizations have told me, show your kids, show your family. Like, it's one thing to say, I don't like what millennials are wearing or how we're dressing, and different things that show who you are.
You are in millennial pink today.
I'm in millennial pink. So sharing that is one thing, but sharing opinion about a topic that you actually cover and people that you often see, that's where the lines get blurred and they're like, I wonder if there's any vetting going on here. But knowing that Terry Moran has a boss and other bosses that watch a package before he goes live or check his script, that's the point of the team, to try to weed out anything that might not be completely objective to tell the news.
The team doesn't check the tweets.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that on his personal page. But the best way to see objectivity in journalism is a process of verifying information. So when you work for, let's say, PBS or NBC or, Meet the Press, these is like verifying information is the characteristic that's more important than the individual person's opinions. And so that is important. And I think that as a journalist, the number one job is just to make sure that you're vetting and verifying and providing real information. Like a journalist did a great job from News Nation last night, when we saw him interview Trump Jr. and say, that's not the actual fact. Let's talk about it. It wasn't his opinion. The facts report that the best friend said that this man voted for Trump. So I'm just telling you that as you provide your opinion about where this person lied, I'm telling you what the facts have reported. And so I think that is a good place to start, is just to verify the information.
Well, but sometimes facts. You're right in this instance, but I don't like when people make this distinction, because obviously sometimes people will assert as fact something that is contested or...
Well, he said it's been widely reported otherwise than what you're saying.
Right. In this case, okay. You're right. Yes, that is true this time. But I see that as a general tactic. Like, for instance, the impacts of man-made activity on climate change are hotly debated. Hotly debated. But some people will assert as fact that it's this bad or whatever. Well, but if you actually get into it, there's a range of view among experts who've considered this question, right, from it's this bad to it's this bad to it's not actually that bad.
And that's why a good journalist would, let's say, just go with writing, because I used to write, would come to the table and provide, here's why climate change has gotten so bad according to experts, and here's what people say that we're over-exaggerating. And that's what a well-thought-out piece, package, or article would have. And then there are opinion pieces where someone's just going to say, we are dragging this climate thing, it's not that serious, and that's an opinion piece, and that's also fine from an entirely different perspective. But it's just so hard for the everyday American to sift through all the information, which I'm so grateful that we have access to, and know, oh, this is not opinion-based, oh, this is fact. So, we're in a new
COVID.
time.
I always turn things back to COVID. It was a fact that masks don't work. Then it was a fact that get a mask, any mask. Then it was a fact that actually only the highest quality masks were making any difference. And ultimately it was a fact that there isn't that much statistical evidence that they
a fact
changed
doesn't mean that
policies.
it's a CDC guideline. It means it's an expert
That's what
recommended.
That's what the expert said.
No, a doctor recommended suggestion. They're telling you how to protect yourself.
I just gave you three Fauci perspectives.
No, state lawmakers are telling you, I'm following this guideline, and you must too in my state, because that's why we put people in local positions to make state rules. That's different than actually saying
that was
facts
coming from
are.
the horse's mouth.
The facts
that was
are,
the highest authority, changing his mind three times.
Politicians are not journalists. That's the point. Journalists' job, and politicians are not doctors. Journalists' job is to sift through and find out if the doctor's lying, the people are lying, what's actually true, how much it helps, and that's a great, excellent journalist. And Terry Moran still is. He just had a moment where he said something, and I think that he maybe shouldn't have been fired. Maybe they could have just had a conversation, but, here we are, and ABC has every right to do whatever they like to do.
Well, that is true.
Next up on Rising, we'll talk to two filmmakers behind a new movie about combating anti-Semitism. It's called Guns N' Moses.